The colony ship Endeavour had crashed on Theta 3 years ago, stranding Imogen and 42 other humans on a world that didn't want them. The planet's dominant species, the Kraith, massive, wolf-like beings with crystalline eyes and fur that shimmered like starlight, had made that abundantly clear. Emma stood at the edge of the human settlement, watching the purple-tinged forest with tired eyes. Jack Rodriguez, her co-pilot and closest friend, approached from behind, his footsteps crunching on the frost-covered ground. "Another scouting party?" he asked, handing her a cup of synthetic coffee. "Third one this week," Emma replied, accepting the warmth gratefully. "The Kraith are getting bolder. Their hunting parties come closer every day." Jack nodded grimly. The Kraith saw humans as invasive vermin, too small and weak to deserve respect, too resilient to ignore. There had been skirmishes, bloody ones. The humans had lost 12 people. The Kraith had lost none. That changed on the day of the blood snow. Emma was repairing the perimeter fence when she heard it, a sound that made her blood freeze. Not the usual howls of the Kraith hunting packs, but something different, something desperate. A whimper. She grabbed her plasma rifle and moved toward the sound, ignoring Jack's shouts behind her. Through the crystalline trees, she found him, Vector, the alpha of the northern pack. The massive Kraith warrior was dragged across the frozen ground, leaving a trail of luminescent blue blood behind him. His right flank had been torn open by something with claws the size of Emma's forearm. Behind him, huddled in terror, were 6 Kraith cubs, barely past their first molt, their fur still soft and ungrown that Emma's breath caught. In 3 years, she'd never seen Kraith young before. They were small, vulnerable, and their crystalline eyes were wide with fear as they watched their alpha struggle. Then she saw what had attacked them. The Renders were nightmare creatures, bioengineered weapons from a war long forgotten, left to multiply in Theta 7's deep caves. Insectoid, armored, and utterly merciless, 3 of them emerged from the tree line, their mandibles clicking with hunger. Vector tried to rise, to place himself between the cubs and death, but his legs buckled. He collapsed with a sound that was almost human in its despair. Emma didn't think. She stepped forward. Jack arrived seconds later, skidding to a stop beside her. "Emma, what are you?" "Get back to the settlement," she said quietly, raising her rifle. "Bring the others. Bring everything we have." "You can't, Jack. Go." He hesitated only a moment before sprinting back through the trees. Emma stood alone between the Renders and the Kraith. Vector's massive head turned toward her, confusion and something like fury in his crystalline gaze. He tried to growl, to warn her away, but blood frothed at his jaws. The first Render charged. Emma's rifle sang, plasma bolts tearing through chitin and flesh. The creature shrieked and fell, but the other 2 split apart, flanking her. She moved backward, keeping herself between them and the cubs, her shots precise despite her hammering heart. One Render got through her defense, its claw raking across her shoulder. Pain exploded white-hot through her body, but she spun and fired point-blank into its mouth. It collapsed in a spray of ichor. The third Render was smarter. It feinted left, then lunged right, going for the cubs. Emma threw herself into its path, and they went down together in a tangle of limbs and chitin. Its mandibles closed around her arm, and she screamed. But her free hand found the plasma pistol at her belt. She fired until the weapon ran dry. When the smoke cleared, Emma lay in the snow, bleeding from a dozen wounds. The 3 Renders were dead, and Vector, the mighty alpha who had killed 17 humans in territorial disputes, stared at her with something that might have been respect. The cubs crept forward, surrounding Emma's fallen form with soft whimpers. Then Jack arrived with reinforcements. 20 humans, armed and ready, burst into the clearing and stopped dead at the sight. Their fragile, wounded Emma surrounded by Kraith cubs, while their alpha lay broken nearby. The doctor, Sarah Kim, moved first, medical kit in hand. But she didn't go to Emma. She went to Vector. "He's dying," she said simply. "But I can help him, if he'll let me." Vector's eyes moved from Emma to Sarah, then to his cubs. Slowly, painfully, he lowered his massive head in submission. The first time a Kraith had ever yielded to a human. What followed was a night of desperate medical work. Sarah and her team labored over Vector's wounds while Emma received treatment for her own injuries. The cubs refused to leave, clustering around both the wounded alpha and the small human female who had saved them. By dawn, both Emma and Vector would survive. By the end of the week, the northern pack arrived at the human settlement, not with weapons, but with offerings. Hunted meat, medicinal plants, crystallized sap that burned hotter than any fuel the humans had found. Vector came personally, still limping, the cubs trailing behind him like a living honor guard. He approached Emma, who stood with her arm in a sling, and did something no human had ever witnessed. He bowed. Then he spoke, his voice like grinding glaciers, in broken but understandable English that he'd spent the week learning. You small, weak. He gestured to his cubs. But you pack. You protect. Emma smiled despite the pain. That's what pack does. Vector's crystalline eyes gleamed. He turned to his people and spoke in his own tongue, his voice carrying across the settlement. The Craith, every one of them, lowered their heads. Jack stepped up beside Emma, watching in awe. What did he say? One of the younger Craith, learning faster than the others, translated haltingly. He says, humans are small, yes. Fragile, yes. But humans see cubs and think not of survival. Think of protection. Humans see enemy fallen and offer healing. The Craith paused, searching for words. He says, any species that fights for young that are not their own deserves to walk the stars. That night, as Emma rested in the medical bay, the 6 cubs that she'd saved crept in through the door. They curled up around her bed like a protective wall of shimmer and warmth. When Vector found them the next morning, he didn't call them away. Instead, the massive alpha simply nodded to Emma and spoke one word that would change everything. Pack. The humans had come to Theta 7 as unwanted refugees. They would leave when they finally repaired their ship decades later, as brothers and sisters to the Craith, with cubs and humans playing together in the purple forests. All because one small human woman had looked at frightened children and decided that being human meant protecting them, no matter the cost. That was the day the galaxy learned what humanity, fuck yeah, really meant.